Laura Bennett woke up to the sound of someone coughing on the other side of a thin curtain. The smell of disinfectant was sharp and cold, and it burned her throat. Her left side felt like it was on fire. Every breath sent a deep ache through her ribs. For a moment she did not remember where she was. Then it came back in a rush. The hospital, the surgery, the kidney. She turned her head slowly. This was not the private room Paul had promised. The walls were stained. A cracked clock ticked loudly above the door. A plastic cup sat on a metal tray beside her bed. Laura tried to press the call button, but her arm was weak. Her fingers shook. The door opened. Paul Bennett walked in. He was not wearing the worried face she had imagined. He was in a clean suit with his hair neatly styled, as if he were heading to a meeting. Behind him was Dorothy Bennett in a wheelchair, and beside Paul stood a woman in a red dress. Vanessa Cole. Paul's eyes did not meet Laura's. Laura whispered, "Paul, did it work? Did your mother get the kidney?" Paul walked closer and dropped a thick envelope onto Laura's chest. It landed right on top of her fresh wound. "That is your divorce agreement," he said calmly. "I already signed it." Laura stared at him. Her ears rang. "Divorce? But I just gave you my kidney. I just saved your mother." Dorothy let out a dry laugh. "You saved nothing, dear. You were only useful for what was inside your body. Now that it is gone, so is your place in this family." Vanessa smiled and lifted her hand. A large diamond ring sparkled on her finger. "Paul and I are engaged," she said. "I am carrying his child." Laura felt the room spin. Paul finally looked at her. "We were never really married, Laura. You were a solution to a problem. My mother needed a kidney. You were a match, that is all." Laura opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Paul added, "We will give you $10,000, enough to start over somewhere cheap." Laura felt something inside her break, not loudly, quietly, like glass cracking under pressure. She realized in that moment that the man she loved had never existed. She was not a wife. She was spare parts. Before Laura Bennett became a patient in a broken hospital ward, she had been a woman who believed in family more than anything else. That belief did not come from comfort, it came from absence. Laura grew up moving from one foster home to another. Some were kind, many were not. She learned early that love could disappear overnight. Suitcases were always half-packed. You never knew when you would be told to leave. By the time she was 18, Laura wanted only one thing: to belong somewhere, to sit at a table where no one questioned why she was there. When she met Paul Bennett 2 years earlier, he felt like an answer to a prayer. He was charming, attentive, he listened when she spoke. He remembered small things about her childhood. When he asked her to marry him, he said, "You will never be alone again." She believed him. But from the beginning, Dorothy Bennett made it clear that Laura was not welcome. Dorothy came from old money. She saw Laura as someone who did not know how to walk or speak like a real Bennett. At family dinners, Dorothy would correct Laura's posture or her table manners in front of everyone. Paul always told her to ignore it. "My mom is just difficult," he would say. "Give her time." So Laura tried harder. She cooked, she cleaned, she smiled even when Dorothy criticized everything she did. Laura believed that if she could just prove she was good enough, Dorothy would finally see her as family. This is how many people get trapped, not because they are weak, but because they want to be loved. When Dorothy fell ill and the doctors said she needed a kidney transplant, Paul came to Laura in tears. He said, "Mom does not have much time. We need you." Laura did not think about herself. She thought about being useful, about finally earning her place. That is how sacrifice begins, not with fear, but with hope. People do not give up parts of themselves because they are stupid. They do it because someone they love asks them to. And Laura loved Paul. She did not yet understand that love without respect is not love at all. When Dorothy Bennett was moved into the private transplant wing, Paul became a different man. His voice softened, his eyes filled with worry. He held Laura's hands like they were the most precious thing in the world. "The doctors say Mom is running out of time," he told her. Dialysis is no longer enough. Her heart is getting weaker every day. Laura felt fear settle in her stomach. I know she is sick, Paul. I am scared too. But Paul leaned closer. You are a match, Laura. The tests proved it. Your blood and tissue are perfect. It is like a miracle. Laura pulled her hands back. A kidney is not a small thing, Paul. What if something goes wrong? What if I cannot have children? Paul sighed like a man carrying the weight of the world. Medical science is advanced now. You will live a normal life, and children can come later. Right now, my mother is dying. Then he said the words that mattered most. You always said you wanted a real family. You want it to belong. This is how you become a true Bennett. Laura felt those words hit her like a soft but deadly blow. For someone who had grown up with nothing, the idea of being accepted was stronger than any fear. When she asked, "Will your mother finally accept me if I do this?" Paul smiled and kissed her forehead. You will be her hero. She will love you. The paperwork came quickly. Too quickly. A young nurse brought stacks of forms. A notary waited in the room. Paul sat beside Laura, guiding her pen. This is just consent. This is standard risk disclosure. This is an emergency relocation waiver. What is that one? Laura asked, pointing at the last page. It is only in case something unexpected happens in surgery, Paul replied. It lets the doctors make fast decisions to save lives. Laura was exhausted. Her head hurt, her heart was full of fear and hope at the same time. So she signed. That is how traps are built, not with chains, with paperwork and promises. Laura believed she was saving her family. In reality, she had just signed away a piece of her own future. The pain came first. Before the shock, before the anger, before the truth. Laura woke to a burning sensation tearing through her left side. It felt as if something had been ripped out of her and replaced with fire. She tried to move, but her body would not obey. Slowly she opened her eyes. This was not the bright, quiet recovery room Paul had promised. The ceiling above her was yellowed. A water stain spread like a dark cloud. The curtain beside her shook as someone coughed violently in the next bed. She swallowed. Why am I here? Her door opened and footsteps approached. Paul walked in. He did not rush to her bedside. He did not take her hand. He stood back, as if she were already a stranger. Behind him was Dorothy in her wheelchair, and beside him Vanessa. Aura whispered, Paul, did it work? Paul did not answer. Dorothy leaned forward and smiled with thin lips. You did your part. That is all that matters. Paul stepped closer and placed an envelope on Laura's bed. Divorce papers. I already signed them, he said. Lara felt the room tilt. You said we were a family. Dorothy laughed. You were never part of this family. You were a tool, a donor, nothing more. Vanessa touched Paul's arm. We did not want to make this ugly, but you are no longer needed. I gave your mother my kidney, Laura cried. I bled for you. Dorothy sneered. Spare parts bleed too. Vanessa raised her hand to show a diamond ring. We are getting married. I am pregnant. Paul nodded. We are building a real family now. Laura could barely breathe. $10,000, Paul added. That is your settlement. Take it and disappear. Laura stared at them. At the man she loved. At the woman who replaced her. At the mother who used her. Something inside her did not break. It froze. Because when someone shows you who they are while you are bleeding, the truth is impossible to forget. The door opened before Laura could even scream. A tall man in a white coat stepped inside. His eyes moved quickly from Laura's shaking body to the heart monitor beside her bed. His jaw tightened. What is happening here? He demanded. Paul turned. Doctor, this is a private family matter. I am Dear Michael Hayes, head of transplant surgery, the doctor replied. And you are causing medical distress to my patient. Dorothy lifted her chin. This woman is no longer part of our family. We are leaving. No, you are not, Jarhays said coldly. Not until we clear something up. Paul frowned. Clear up what? My mother received the kidney. The surgery was done. Drace turned to Dorothy. The kidney removal was completed successfully, but the transplant into you was cancelled. Silence filled the room. What do you mean, cancelled? Dorothy snapped. Your final blood test showed active viral infection and immune rejection markers, Dr. Hayes explained. If we had placed Laura's kidney into your body, you would have died on the operating table. Paul went pale. Then where's the kidney? Dr. Hayes did not hesitate. Under emergency reallocation protocol, it was given to the next priority patient with a matching profile. Who? Paul shouted. Richard Hale. The name landed like thunder. Paul staggered. That man was one of the richest and most powerful people in the country. Dr. Hayes continued. The transplant was successful. Your wife saved his life. Layla felt her heart begin to beat again. Paul whispered. We gave away her kidney. No, Dr. Hayes corrected him. You signed documents that allowed it. You tried to trap her. Instead, you trapped yourself. The room that had once felt small now felt unbearable. Karma had just walked in wearing a white coat. Within the hour, Laura was no longer in the broken ward. Nurses moved quickly. Her bed was rolled through quiet halls and into a private elevator. When the doors opened again, she was on the top floor of the hospital. Soft light filled the corridor. Fresh flowers lined the walls. Everything smelled clean and calm. This was the world of Richard Hale. A man in a black suit walked beside her. My name is Caleb Moore, he said. I represent Mr. Hale. You will be staying here while you recover. Laura felt dizzy. Why are you doing this? Because you saved his life, Caleb replied. To Mr. Hale, that is a debt that can never be ignored. Her new room was larger than her apartment had ever been. There was a couch, a view of the city, a nurse who spoke gently. Caleb placed a new phone on her bedside. Your old phone was destroyed by Mr. Bennett. This one is secure. Our legal team and security are already connected. Laura stared at the phone. I do not understand any of this. You do not need to yet, Caleb said. For now you need to rest and be safe. Drace entered quietly. You are stable, Laura. Your body will heal. But do not let them make you feel small. For the first time since she woke up, Laura felt something she had not felt in years. Safety. She closed her eyes and let the silence hold her. Somewhere above the city, a man was breathing again because of her. And somewhere below it, the people who tried to destroy her were starting to realize what they had done. 2 days later, a man in a gray suit sat beside Laura's bed. My name is Arthur Reynolds, he said. I am Mr. Hale's attorney. We reviewed the divorce papers Paul gave you. Laura felt her chest tighten. I do not have anything left to lose. Arthur opened a folder. That is where you are wrong. During your marriage, Paul used your name to register several properties and 2 manufacturing companies. He did this to protect his assets from business risks. Laura frowned. I signed documents, but I did not know what they were. Exactly, Arthur said, but legally they belong to you. And when Paul rushed the divorce, he made a critical mistake. He waived any claim to assets registered in your name. Laura stared at him. That means the factories, the homes, the buildings, they are now yours. She began to laugh. It was quiet at first, then deep and shaky. Paul had spent years calling her naive. And now his greed had made her wealthy. Arthur leaned forward. If you sign the divorce now, it becomes permanent. He cannot undo it. Laura picked up the pen. When she signed the donation papers, she had been scared. The time she was come. I want it finished, she said. Arthur nodded. It will be done. Outside her window, the city moved on. And somewhere Paul Bennett was celebrating a victory he had already lost. Richard Hale did not treat Laura like a charity case. When she was strong enough to sit up, he came to visit her himself. He was thinner than his photographs, but his eyes were sharp. You gave me more than a kidney, he said. You gave me time, and time is the most valuable thing in the world. He did not offer pity, he offered purpose. If you want to survive people like Paul, you need power, he told her. Money, knowledge, confidence. Laura did not argue. When she left the hospital, she did not go back to the small apartment Paul had chosen for her. She went to one of Hale's residences. Tutors arrived, lawyers, financial advisors. Laura learned how to read contracts, how to negotiate, how to say no. Her hair was cut short, her posture changed, her voice became steady. The woman who once apologized for existing began to disappear. This was not revenge yet. This was rebirth. Because before you can fight, you must first learn who you are. And Laura was no longer just a woman who had been used. She was becoming someone who could never be used again. 3 months later, Paul Bennett was desperate. His company was drowning in debt. His mother was back on dialysis. Vanessa was spending money like it would never end. Then an invitation arrived. A private investment meeting with Laura Bennett, now a senior director at Hale Capital. Paul laughed when he read it. She still needs me, he said. He walked into Laura's office with confidence. He told her his company only needed a temporary cash injection. Laura listened without emotion. She offered him $15 million. His eyes shone. But the contract was strict. Impossible sales targets, full collateral. Paul did not read the fine print, he saw only the money. He thought. He used properties registered under Laura's name as security, believing they were still his. Laura watched quietly. The trap closed. Because a greedy man never imagines the ground beneath him can disappear. Laura chose the hospital for the final confrontation. Dorothy was weak again. Dialysis had drained what little strength she had left. Paul sat beside her bed while Vanessa stood near the window scrolling on her phone. When Laura walked in, both of them froze. Paul stood up. Laura? You came. Laura did not look at him. She placed a folder on the table. Vanessa, you should read this, she said. Vanessa opened it. Her face went white. Photos, bank records, hotel receipts. You have been stealing from Paul's company, Laura said, and sleeping with another man. Vanessa laughed nervously. Lies. Then Laura placed another paper on the bed. Your pregnancy timeline. Paul picked it up. His hands shook. I was in Chicago when this happened. Vanessa went silent. Paul turned to her. Is the baby mine? She did not answer. Laura spoke again. I also have something else. She pressed play on her phone. Paul's voice filled the room. Vanessa is a mistake. I will leave her once I get the money. I will put my mother in a nursing home if I have to. Dorothy stared at him. You are going to abandon me. Paul fell to his knees. Mom, I was lying. Laura looked at all of them. You sold me for a kidney, you sold her for money, and you sold your own mother for comfort. She turned to Dorothy. I gave you my kidney because I thought you were family. You made me bleed, and then you threw me away. Dorothy reached out. Help me. Laura stepped back. Some gifts can only be given once. The heart monitor began to scream. Laura walked out without looking back. The room filled with panic. But for Laura, the noise was already over. The sirens came before the silence. Doctors rushed in as Dorothy struggled to breathe. Paul screamed for help. Vanessa ran toward the door but was stopped by hospital security. Dorothy Bennett died that night. Not from kidney failure alone, but from the shock of learning her own son would discard her. 2 hours later, police arrived. Paul was arrested in the hospital hallway for fraud and asset misuse. His company accounts had been frozen. Hale Capital had seized everything. Vanessa was taken away for embezzlement and identity fraud. Paul did not fight. He looked empty. The man who thought he owned everyone was now owned by the law. Laura watched from a distance. She did not feel joy. She felt relief. Because justice does not need cruelty. It only needs truth. 1 year later, Laura Bennett stood in a quiet cemetery. 2 simple headstones marked the place where her parents rested. She placed fresh white flowers at their base. "I am okay," she whispered. So much had changed. Laura now ran a foundation that helped kidney patients receive ethical treatment and legal protection. No one under her care would ever be used the way she had been. Her scar had faded into a thin white line. It no longer made her feel weak. It reminded her that she survived. Dr. Michael Hayes waited a few steps behind her. He had stayed by her side through everything. "You ready?" he asked gently. Laura nodded. They walked together toward the sunlight. Her past was no longer something that followed her. It was something she had walked away from. Before we end this story, there is something important to remember. Laura did not win because she was lucky. She won because she stopped believing lies about her own worth. Too many people stay in toxic relationships because they think love means sacrifice, but real love does not ask you to bleed just to belong. If someone treats you like a tool, they do not deserve your loyalty. Laura learned that her body, her heart, and her future were not things to be traded for acceptance. They were hers. If this story made you feel something, take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they are more than what others take from them. And comment below where you are watching from and what you would have done in Laura's place. This is the art of revenge, where broken people become powerful, and where karma always remembers.